Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome to the cold and autonomous comic book vault. Today on the vault, we're going to take a look at Iron Man number 300 from 1994. This is a book that was sent to me by Jaden Nova in our most recent mailbag day. Sorry I'm not doing Deadpool today. I've still got some more left to read on that. I'm not quite finished. Those volumes are really thick and I got a lot of other things going on, but I did want to go ahead and try to put up a vault today. Haven't been getting out as many daily vaults as I'd like to, and sorry about that. I had family in town this weekend and some other things going on, but I did want to go ahead and put a vault out for you. So very quickly, here is Iron Man number 300. Now this book is kind of everything that is the reason that I wasn't a big fan of Iron Man, and I've never been a big fan of Iron Man, but the reason that I didn't really care that much for Iron Man prior to the movies, and that's because, at least the way he's characterized here and in the way he's characterized in other things that I've seen him in, he seems really generic. This Tony Stark is a guy who is talked about a lot by people who know him as being really full of himself, really conceited, and that sort of thing. But it's not a fun conceited. He just simply knows everything, barks some orders, and kind of spouts a lot of moral platitudes. He's really more no-nonsense than I'd like for a guy who's really rich, knows everything, and bosses people around a lot. That's not to say that I have to have exactly the movie Tony Stark to enjoy it. There are definitely different ways to do this character, and I've seen him done in other comic books where he's not the movie Tony Stark, but this guy needs to lighten up a little bit. Now, having said that, he does begin this issue being in a coma and having to work through some personal issues in his mind to figure out who he is and what his programming is, as it were, and then he is able to finally come out of his coma and finally go back to being Iron Man. Apparently he's been in bad shape for a while. He's been in a wheelchair for a while prior to this. Now, I haven't read anything before this. I'm, of course, not a big Iron Man fan. I don't read a lot of Iron Man, and so I'm just reviewing this as a standalone thing, but basically, like I said, it's kind of a big giant action piece with some moral platitudes thrown in for good measure to make it feel like more than just a giant action piece. I don't think that's unfair. I kind of think that's what's going on here. Having said that, I mean, it's a fun read. There is a lot of nice action, some really good artwork, some really good 90s artwork. It's Kevin Hopgood penciling here, and I really like the way he's drawing all these different Iron Man armors. But like I said, it's extremely 90s. Now, when I say 90s, that's not to say that every 90s book, of course, is just totally action-driven. A lot of my favorite things are from the 90s, and I was a comic book kid in the 90s. But what I mean by that is, for action-driven 90s stuff, this is what the most action-driven stuff is like. It's basically set up a premise to have a whole bunch of fight scenes and have as many big giant splash pages with a lot of people hitting each other as possible, and a lot of really dramatic people are flying kinds of pictures, and that's what we have here. Basically, the idea is we've got this giant kind of automaton robot called Ultimo, whose whole mission is just to kill anything that moves. That's what he's programmed to do. And I'm honestly not real clear, even with what we're given here, exactly who programmed this thing and what exactly it's doing, beyond that it just seems to be programmed to go against Tony Stark and people who work with Tony Stark. So basically, Iron Man's entire supporting cast put on old Iron Man armors that weren't meant to ever be used again in order to fight this thing, because Tony Stark's in a coma, and apparently it doesn't occur to them to ask any other superheroes to join them. Granted, they're not in New York City right now. They're in another city, which was one of the really goofy things about this book. There's a couple of really goofy things here. One of them is they're in the city called Futura. Now, I don't know if this is a big Marvel thing that I just wasn't aware of before this, but I think it's kind of silly just in the context of this, that we have all of this stuff about human beings and our programming, as it were, nature versus nurture stuff versus robots who are, completely programmed. And so we're dealing with these classic questions of technology and whether it's hurting or helping humankind, more or less. And we've got this city called Futura. That seems kind of convenient. So anyway, basically we've got Happy Hogan and some and Rhodey and some other characters that I don't really know from Adam that all throw on all these old Iron Man suits, including the original Iron Man suit that he built in the cave, as far as I can tell. And they all go off to fight Ultimo, and they get kind of their clocks cleaned a lot, and ultimately Iron Man shows up to save the day when he works out all these problems in his mind that have to do with his father. And that's kind of the most interesting part. I said that there's kind of some moral platitudes thrown in. I do think that this is kind of done hurriedly because it's trying to get us back to the action. It does ask some interesting questions. It's just that the execution for how they're resolved is, it definitely leaves something to be desired for me. And basically, the idea, again, it's a nature versus nurture thing. It's Tony Stark, was in a way programmed by his father, and he's to constantly push himself to have this drive to be as good or better than his father. And so he has all these dreams when he's in this coma of his father, and there's one panel, I think it's a little bit heavy-handed, where he's depicted as a devil. And basically, the idea is that his father was too pushy, too bossy, really, really rough on him, and he's learning how to overcome that kind of thing, and he's trying to learn that he's more than just the sum of his parts, that he can. It's kind of like what we were talking about with the last Deadpool volume, actually. The free will, the argument of a free will versus just natural instinct. And so Tony Stark kind of has this mind over matter moment, and he wakes up from his coma, and then he has another mind over matter moment whenever he gets out of his chair and puts on his new Iron Man armor. Now, his new Iron Man armor is the Iron Man armor that I remember seeing in a lot of comic books that I grew up with. The first place I saw it was in this book called Iron Man Operation AIM. And this was the first Iron Man thing I ever read, which is really strange because I read a novel before I ever read a comic book. I don't know where I got this or why. I think maybe my mother or somebody bought this for me, and so I read it. And it's a good thing that there were some pictures in here, because each chapter in this book has a picture, a black and white, comic art picture, and that was good because otherwise I wouldn't have had any idea what MODOK looked like or any characters like that. But anyway, it was kind of strange reading characters like Iron Man and War Machine and MODOK and Mandarin off the page, and not really getting a sense of what they look like beyond just a couple of pictures, and then I kind of had to fill in the rest of my mind. It's obviously that's what novels are about, but it was kind of interesting doing that with things that are generally meant to be on the pages. As far as I know, this thing wasn't based on a comic book. This was just an original novel. So anyway, I instantly recognized this armor, and was kind of surprised that it was introduced this late. Now, this isn't one of those armors that's got a number. It's not a Mark something armor unless they gave it something like that later. Like I said, not an Iron Man expert. But one of the goofy things, I mentioned there's a couple of really goofy things. The other one is his armor is called the 1994 armor. So like they're dating themselves on purpose. So anyway, this is the 1994 armor. So yeah, pretty much just a big giant action piece, and a lot of kind of trying to compare, as far as what the ideas are of the book, kind of comparing how human beings are wired versus machines that are, of course, wired by by human beings, and trying to decide whether or not people are any better or worse than machines, and if we're kind of machines on our own, and that sort of thing. Obviously, classic science fiction ideas. Again, I like that they're introduced. I just wish that it was a little bit less super action heavy, and explored some of those ideas in a more effective way. The end of this is really funny because in this weird backwards kind of, or not backwards, but in this really weird kind of haphazard way, this book kind of tries to use its ending to advertise characters that will be in the book soon. So there's this kind of artificial intelligence at the end of this that you have to assume probably sent Ultimo out, that gives percentages of characters that Iron Man is most likely to fight soon. And doing a bit of research after this, I noticed that at least a couple of these are on covers right just after issue 300. And those characters are Deathlock, Venom, the New Warriors, and the Hulk. I think that's really funny. It's like they throw that in there so that people will be like, ooh, Venom's going to be in an Iron Man comic. I think I have that issue. I might review it at some point. So anyway, that's Iron Man 300. Kind of lackluster for me, but also really kind of interesting. So anyway, thanks as always for watching the Comic Book Vault, and if there's anything you'd ever like to see me review on the Vault, you can always send things to our P.O. Box, and that's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. You can donate things. You can lend us things. Send me a personal message before you send anything, see if I already have it. And also let me know where you're sending things from, because I can only take lens from in the States to send back. So anyway, thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.